Welcome back here at ESCMID Global TV. My name is Judith Cohen, and I'm very happy to have you all here with me in the TV studio to listen to the little chat I'm going to have with Professor Till Bachmann on Pipeline Monday. Pipeline Monday is a new format this year at ESCMID Global 2025, and Till Bachmann is one of the responsible people for the program. So a warm welcome to you, Till, for being here and taking the time to explain to us in a little bit more detail what Pipeline Monday is and where the idea for a Pipeline Monday came from.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Judith. And before I start, let me please, I would like to recognize and mention the people who have been contributed to the program of the Pipeline Monday. So we had a steering committee. So we were approached because Ursula Torritzbacher and myself, we have been running the pipeline, diagnostic pipelines and therapeutic pipeline corners for quite some years. And it's actually the 10th year's anniversary of the therapeutics pipeline corner, which has been running by Ursula Torritzbacher. And so we were approached by Robert Scove and Jacob Moran for setting up the Pipeline Monday. So we gathered a committee, and in the committee is Ursula, as I mentioned, then Martin Postma, Gada Zubiane, and Charlotte Vernis, and Holger Rode. And we did assemble them, or this committee, to represent the different aspects which we wanted to cover in the Pipeline Monday. And so really a big thanks to all these people who have contributed, and all our chairs and speakers in the sessions.
Because the pipeline corners that were organized on the previous congresses, they were hugely successful, right?
Absolutely.
And
yes.
Is that the reason, the main reason that there's a full day dedicated to?
I'd hope so, yes. I think it was a good, I think, reassurance that there is good interest in something which is dedicated to innovation, dedicated to the pipeline. We had always good audience. The pipeline corners are happening in the open arena, which is a positive, of course, because you have easy access, people here. But it's also a little bit of a challenge, of course, because the acoustics are open and people may come and leave, but we always had full house, and that, I think, is an indicator that there is an interest. And for the Pipeline Monday, what we really wanted to do here is to bring the different disciplines together. So we have prevention, diagnostics, and therapeutics covered, but also the different sectors, so clinical, academic research, bridging over into industry, to having the translation there, focus on the innovation. And putting them all in one track facilitates the dialogue between the different sectors, which are easily fragmented otherwise, but also then including others like policymakers, regulators, who are there, who are able then to present, communicate, discuss.
Yeah, all the right people in the right place at the same time.
Yes.
Yeah. So can you tell us a little bit more about what exciting developments you are seeing in diagnostics and therapeutics and vaccines? I can imagine that the development is, well, so speedy that it's hardly keeping track of, but you must be keeping track of it.
Yes. I mean, we're obviously watching closely. We're involved in many of these developments, and so there are a number of activities, and we, as I said, we wanted to cover therapeutics, vaccines, or prevention. We chose vaccine predominantly, and diagnostics, but looking at the bigger picture. So we have. If you look at the program, we have two tracks. Well, it's called the Pipeline Monday, but we have the track in a hall and one in the open arena. And in the hall, we have bigger symposia. So we have always with the therapeutics, we have a track or a session in the 2-hour session. And I'm mentioning this because it emphasizes the importance of new developments in the therapeutics. So there, I mean, I'm not talking about individual companies because I don't want to highlight individual companies specifically, because all of them do fantastic jobs. And what we want to do is we want to bring them together for the communication. For therapeutics, it's really about having innovation in the field where we have the pipeline of antibiotics. The next 5 years, we will see a lot about modification of existing structures, modification of existing known principles. Beyond that, it's more of new structures, new chemical entities, and there's a lot coming in this space. Currently, there's a lot of focus on gram-negatives, but of course, it's also broadening. And one very strong aspect which we wanted to bring in is in the area of fungal, antifungal resistance and fungal therapeutics. So we have that included also in the pipeline Monday, in the big symposium, but also in the pipeline. For the pipeline corner on therapeutics, it's an interesting format this year. Of course, there's an opportunity to review 10 years back. How did it all start? And that gives you a long vision of view on what has happened. So companies which have started, were successful, maybe got bored, or maybe were less successful, and make a little bit of a review and learn for the future and give an example. And there is a lot to learn there, I think, from the diagnostics. From the therapeutics pipeline corner. So a lot there. We also then have included a bit more of a controversial, potentially controversial, it's not actually controversial, discussion around should we have new antibiotics at all? So we have a yes-no debate in this session.
Because people would rather modify the existing ones.
Well, we're talking so much about we need new antibiotics. Is it actually true? I think it's worthwhile to sit back and ask the question, do we need it?
Yeah.
And yes, we do. I mean, our opinion is yes, we do, but we also need to enhance the utilization of, or the appropriate use of existing antibiotics. And that's really important to understand that. So we have antibiotics, make sure we use them appropriately. Yeah. What do we need for that? We need diagnostics. And that's why we have 2 sessions again on diagnostics, a pipeline corner on diagnostics and a symposium on diagnostics. In the pipeline corner, as we do always, we focus on the early stage companies who have exciting new innovation and giving them a platform to present, but also technology, but also demonstrate what do they have in terms of evidence that this actually works. So we have exciting ones in the diagnostics who look at the pathogens, look at the host response, but also looking at the bigger informatics and data management around it. And then in the diagnostics symposium, which is bigger, we focus on directly from blood detection, because sepsis, bloodstream infection, obviously a huge challenge. You have very few organisms in the blood causing sepsis or bloodstream infection. And then you need to have very rapid responses. So people would really like to go straight from blood. A lot of diagnostic technologies go from blood culture much later, so it's slow. Be faster directly from specimen. So hence we focused on these technologies there. Again, fantastic technologies which are presented. But again, we asked the question, what is technically feasible? What is clinically useful? From the technology to the implementation? And then we put a critical review on that. So what is already out there and how do these technologies fit in there? So taking a holistic view, as I said, facilitating a dialogue between them.
Yeah, but a meta view like this is only possible probably if you connect all the different disciplines together, like was in the case in Pipeline Corners, but now on a Pipeline Monday. You need all the right people in the same place.
Exactly.
Otherwise, it's difficult to look back and ask these questions, I can imagine. Yeah. What were the most important topics that were addressed this year, do you think?
All of them. All of them are really important. But I think
otherwise it wouldn't be discussed.
Absolutely, I would like to. I would like to highlight the inclusion of the fungal aspects. So we have a session, a fungal pipeline corner, to make it really make it open. And in there we will have a discussion of the recently published WH reports, the pipeline report, and on the antifungal drugs, and the landscape report on diagnostics, on fungal diagnostics. So fungal is always, you could see in the development a bit behind, in the attention a bit behind, in the development, not in the importance, but it's if you look at specifically around diagnostics and developments, because of the there are clear challenges, technical challenges, clinical challenges to identify a fungal infection versus a infection with other pathogens. They're overlapping symptoms, so it is a challenging.
More complex,
thing.
Would you say that?
Maybe it's more complex, but it's definitely in terms of the access, the therapeutic access to the organism is challenging. The diagnostics access to the organism is challenging, or the class is challenging, but it's coming. And it's really important to highlight that we have also, the WHO had their fungal priority pathogen list published in 2022. Now we have the two new reports of fungal infections are rising in attention. They're already there. Fungi are.
Are they also
pathogen.
rising in incidence? Like, are there more with the climate changes? Are there more fungal threats?
I would definitely say so. Yes. And of course, there is a challenge if you have antifungal resistance. Then, if you have not a very healthy pipeline, as it is more coming now, or there is definitely more happening in the bacterial space than in the fungal space, then it's very worthwhile to flag that in order to drive innovation or an activity in there, an investment in there. So fungal, I think, is really important. Vaccines, I would also say, is a key point which we had included in there, because every infection which you have prevented, you don't need to treat at the end. So vaccines have a really important aspects in our approach to infectious diseases, and hence we have covered this very widely in with 2 sessions again in the Pipeline Monday. We make the link. And I haven't said that yet, but it's the antimicrobial resistance. Obviously, is the big. We haven't planned for that, but in the discussion, that was the huge overarching. It's not a Pipeline Monday on AMR, but AMR features all over, because such a strong impact it has on patients, on all of our work. So we also look into the vaccines and AMR questions. So what can be done in this space? And again, really good coverage there. So, and lastly, because you asked what's important, I think we should look at data and how we handle data handling. So bioinformatics approaches, if you talk about bioinformatics in this space, we very often talk about sequencing and data handling of sequencing, automated sequencing. So moving away from the data generation, the technology, to what do you do with the data? How do you handle them? How do you process them? How do you create meaningful information from the data which you have captured? So the data processing is important. So a lot of activities there, again, in the bioinformatics pipeline corner. But then we take it again a step further and look into how do you implement that in clinical decision support systems? So we have a specific session in Meet the Innovators to look at these tools, these data tools, to take the diagnostics information, take all the bioinformatic support which are there into meaningful applications. So it helps decision making. It takes a look at what we currently have mostly is separated, very focused, narrow-focused applications of these, let's say, antibiotic prescribing support for clinical decision support systems. But if you look at the whole patient pathway, the care pathway, it would be really good to understand individually for the patient the whole care pathway and how the data could be helping to support making decisions there. So focus on data handling.
Yeah.
If I may, our final, really, the question is always who pays for that? Someone needs to pay for all of our diagnostics, all of our therapeutics, and so on. So,
but you mean for the manufacturing, or for the research, or for the
if you use not for the research, for the application. So, in order to use a tool, use an intervention, there needs to be a reimbursement, and to reimburse someone needs to see the value of that intervention. So health economics evaluation, health technology assessment is a big part of it. So we thought we can't have a Pipeline Monday without looking at economics. And I'm really passionate about this, because we need to, if we understand what's the value of using a diagnostic, what's the value of using an antibiotic. So we need to have that included in the consideration. And of course, but we need to understand how to best capture the value, how to do.
Because I can imagine it's quite different for every different country.
Absolutely.
Even within a continent, within Europe, there'll probably be large differences.
That brings us to another really interesting aspect. So where do we go from here? But in terms of economics, absolutely, every setting is different. Every setting has its different aspects. And how do you make data sharing, data access between those to really enhance and facilitate these economic studies?
Yeah. Super interesting.
So that's a package and a holistic view on the innovation.
Yeah. So first Pipeline Monday, are you already working towards, because it most likely will not be the last Pipeline Monday, because it's evolved from many successful pipeline corners. Are you already looking how to evolve it even further in the future? Are there even more plans that you couldn't incorporate for this year, but are really willing to have in next years or in the years to come?
Yeah, absolutely. So as you can imagine, that's an exciting endeavor. We had so many ideas what we wanted to do. We have only a finite time. ESCMID Global is already a huge event. We need to select. So this year is first one. Next time, I think what we would like to do is to, of course, look at expanding on where we had the topics now, which we have in there, but also refining them. For example, we already have it in there, but I would really like to see more inclusion of AI in the discussion, because the facilitation of using these techniques is so fantastic. The opportunities are really, really great in the diagnostics, in the surveillance, etc. The decision support systems, which I mentioned. So a lot is happening there, and we need to enhance the vision on that, the coverage. So that's, let's say, on the technology space, but then also the discussion on who contributes, who puts in into the discussion in the Pipeline Monday from a stakeholder perspective, so multi-stakeholder input. So of course, we have a view with industry. We are facilitating their input into this, but then also look into different geographies. You just mentioned different geographies have different aspects. We want to clearly reflect on that, because you develop a diagnostic for one area, it may not be applicable in the other. Same for the therapeutics. They have different resistance profiles, different countries, different geographies. So you need vaccines, of course, as well. So you need to look at that and have input there. The other are stakeholders. Really what I like to bring in much more stronger is the patient view in our discussion, because we always, as I said, we are, a lot is driven by economic pressures or requirements, but at the end it's about the patient, it's a patient benefit. So we should have that included in the discussion and in also in.
How do you envision that? What would it look like to bring in the patient view?
Well, that can be, first of all, I mentioned all the people who have been now in the committee. There could be a direct contribution to the committee through representation. It can be through a dedicated session, through presentations. So I'm always very keen to have people with lived experience of antimicrobial resistance having a voice in these discussions and in presentations, in events. So having that included would be fantastic.
Wow, great plans.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, well, it can't be long before Pipeline Monday turns even more days or weeks, or there's so much, so rapidly developing that, you managed to fill it all up, right?
That wasn't difficult, as I said, but also it's obvious that there are a lot of sessions happening around in the program in ESCMID Global, which are very close to what the Pipeline Monday does. But I think the Pipeline Monday is unique in a sense that it brings it all in one track, and to have the people, there's no separation of industry or of stakeholders, industry, academic, clinical. So it's in one track. So it facilitates this dialogue.
Yeah.
Which is so important.
Wonderful. Well, congratulations on the first Pipeline Monday. And thank you so much for coming here in the ESCMID Global TV studio to tell us a little bit more about the background of the Pipeline Monday. Thank you all for watching. We will be back later with more live content brought to you here from our ESCMID Global TV studio in Vienna. See you later.